Alright, another video. Oh, this is just horrible. And it gets more and more, just the layers of it just get deeper and deeper, so I really want to play some of my original video, which is a really good video, and I'll just illustrate exactly what I did say and how really careful that video was and how really sloppy anti-BullShitMan's remarks were. So anyway, but Heroin Church has showed up again, well, church caller. And he sits there and says, thank you for finally calling inmendham out on his sloppiness. Yeah, I'm the slob. I play people's videos and respond to them, you know, and you know, I don't make these sloppy comments all over the fucking place, that's for sure. I see some Klingons like annoying groupie in different sky are still squawking. Good on you for doing this. Okay, so whatever. Doing what? What is exactly that he's done? Oh, that's right. Really made a fucking huge mess. I made a really careful video. It's a really good video. The original video that's a response to Holiday. It's a really good video. It has premises outlined, and I describe the premises. And I'm careful and cautious about not saying too much. And it's a really good video, and this fucker took a shit on it. And you're applauding him. I mean, really, that's all that happened here. I didn't make any like outrageously bold statements in that video. And so now we're just going to show Heroin Church for the fucking asswipe he is, because right here he makes these idiotic comments. You know, just idiotic. So here's what he said on another video. Here's what he said on Anti-Bullshit's other video. Yes, I couldn't agree more that the net principle approach is very pushy and prying. Well, again, the net principle approach doesn't push or pry on anybody. It just establishes a truth. That in the end, when the game is all played, the only thing it's going to matter is a certain number of pawns went through a certain amount of trauma, okay, and a certain number of pawns had some sort of little glory moments. And it's really not going to matter what their names were. It's not going to matter. No other context is going to matter. It doesn't matter whether tigers feel good or tigers feel bad, or their prey feels good or their prey feels bad. All that matters is things feel good and things feel bad. And if you want to think there's something else is true here, then you're an idiot. The reason why people do bad things in the world is because people are stupid. That's all. They're just as ignorant as a cat playing with a mouse. When a psychopath is ripping somebody's skin off and eating it, he's just an ignorant cat playing with a mouse. He doesn't understand what it is he's doing, the damage he's creating. Anyway. The idea of collectivism is disgusting to me. So, right there's an interesting statement. Because I do not at all see people as being fundamentally equal. So fundamentally equal is not somehow I'm being a slob by using a word describing that we basically fit into a category of being sentient, being capable of being harmed, feeling, all this kind of stuff, and he thinks he's better than everybody else, or better than most, or better than something, and that somehow what he feels is more important than what they feel. Or somehow it would matter if they have a broken leg and he has a broken leg, that somehow they should have a broken leg. And I've even said in videos quite clearly that if we could distribute the harm, we should distribute it to the assholes. But that's just emotionally gratifying. Let's not be irrational assholes and say somehow that's the disciplined intellectual thought. No, that's the moron talking. That somehow it matters who's doing the suffering. Because it just fucking doesn't. I mean, the only thing that matters is deterrence and education. And as soon as you're not doing those two things, pain and suffering, it just doesn't matter whose brain it's in. The sensations we feel may be the same, well there you go, but the individualism is a necessary barrier that must be used to sort and organize our reality. So that is just complete mush, right? So at worst, I might be able to interpret that as some sort of, we need it to have social structure. Well again, I haven't undone social structure. I haven't advocated that criminals are innocent and they shouldn't go to prison or any of that shit. I haven't said any of that crap, and I'm a hard determinist. Yeah, I don't think there's any way you can unravel the fact that you need deterrence. So, yeah, but as soon as deterrence is eliminated as a possibility, if there is no deterrent value, there's absolutely no point in if we capture Adolf Hitler, torturing Adolf Hitler. So if you think there is, then I think you're retarded. And the same is true. It just doesn't matter who feels the pain. It just doesn't. You want to believe it does, go ahead and believe it. But I think that's profoundly ignorant. And it makes your claims of being worthy of your elitist perception of yourself exaggerated. Because apparently you're not very smart if you think that's true. So, but yeah, you're the slob on the internet, jackass. So anyway, he's done a video, Inmendham's decline. Yeah, whatever. I think, whatever. I don't know what this icon has to do with it, but whatever. He's obsessed with this suicide thing. So I think I'll block him just so he can't let me know again. Now, oh, Gary, I'm going to kill myself. Well, good for you. Get to it. But anyway, you don't need to be playing that game a second time. All right. Let's see. 3 minutes. This will be easy. 3:47. So you just slander me, and that'll be fine. I wish Gary would go back to his ownage-like videos about antinatalism, like the response to Rabbit Ape. They were both entertaining and informative. This morality debate is boring. I mean, amazing. So you're talking about the fundamental game, the fundamental nature of what life is made out of, trying to balance this mechanism of desire with this, and this is the irony, right? Herman Church just left a comment on one of my videos too, praising the video because I made some sort of line about how life is just releasing yourself from the burdens. That's what euphoria is just getting loose of all the crap that you've learned and acclimated to. You acclimate to the cement shoes life puts on you, and every bit of cement you chip off makes you feel better. But that's all you're doing. You're just chipping cement off your fucking balls. You probably like that statement. And here he is ragging and doing this fucking pissing and shitting. It's just amazing turd. Like this isn't an important conversation. I mean, just amazing, these assholes. It's not important to talk about it in terms of all the way from the beginning to the end, to deal with every single element of it. Of course, some of these arguments will mean nothing to some people. Some of them will mean something to other people. And if you don't understand that you can't just make the same argument to every single person, and that arguments have to be created, they have to be built, and the more you can tie it all together, the more you can make the Lincoln logs all connect properly. The more solid you make that square box, that structure, the more weight it can hold, the more hammer blows it can take, the more kicking around it's going to be able to endure. The stronger you make that argument, the better off you'll be in the long run. And here you shitheads will rag on me because I'll sit there and endure this minutia and fight through these details, and you fucking will sit there and rag on me for it. I mean, you fucking suck. You contribute nothing. Either one of you little turds. And yet you'll point your finger at me? Fuck. This morality debate is boring, and I think antinatalism holds water regardless of moral realism versus nihilism. Well, again, I don't understand how a nihilist has any business judging other people's lives when they don't believe in anything. When they don't believe when they think it's all scenery outside a train window. How can you call it scenery outside a train window and then lecture other people about what they're supposed to be doing in that world? It doesn't make any fucking sense, you retard. I think it's completely corrosive to making a solid argument when you sit there and obnoxiously tell other people what they're supposed to believe and do it based on a foundation of you don't know what you're talking about. You're basically walking up to somebody and saying, I don't know about anything. I don't know what means anything. I don't know a fucking thing about it. I can't figure it out. I can't tell you that it means something. Yet I'm going to tell you what to do. How can you possibly have any fucking credibility from that position? Oh, God, you're just fucking idiots. Regardless of versus not, well, again, I'm not an anti-natalist, I'm an ethicist, okay? I think life is fundamentally broken, and I'm going to talk about life being fundamentally broken, not the human condition, okay? Life itself. Most of the goddamn price for this existence, you stupid little cunts, is being paid by the crap living out there, all right? 999 million zillion gazillion 0.9999% of it is being. They're the one paying the price for this conversation. They're the one paying the price for every minute of delay in us fixing it. Okay, they're paying the price, not you little fucking egomaniacal jackasses, you little sit on your ass complaining pieces of pus. You're disgusting. You have no right to even fucking gripe about anything. You fucking assholes. Let's see. I think anti-Nazism whole regardless of the realism versus nihilism. You can be a moral nihilist and still rail against rape and torture, etc. Well, I don't know exactly how you can do that without being a completely fucktarded hypocrite. How the fuck can you say, this is just my subjective opinion, chocolate cake is better than not chocolate cake? I mean, you're conceding that somebody else can come up with a subjective opinion that's completely opposite yours and it's valid. And yet you're going to argue in defense of your opinion. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. I somewhat agree. Well, that's a really, man, you're not vague at all there. You're not at all misleading or, sloppy. That's not a sloppy response. I somewhat agree. Man, that's not as sloppy at all. That's like not diarrhea over every wall in the goddamn house. What the fuck does that mean? I somewhat agree. Somewhat agree with what? Rabbit Ape's name is funny? Oh, the guy didn't even say that. What the fuck? What the fuck are you agreeing with, you stupid putz? Oh, man, I just see you fucking little weasels. Alright, so well, whatever. I can't block you from here, but I will be blocking you.
I'm very glad to see that there are some anti-natalists, led by anti-BullShitMan, that are at last calling inmendham out for his sloppiness. The first wake-up call that I had was the whole reincarnation bit.
Oh, he keeps going back to it, right? I did an hour-long Skype with him, explained the situation. He seemed to think it was an agreeable explanation, and he wants to rag on it some more. I mean, I used it as a metaphor for this idea that I woke up here, okay? I didn't come from some special origin place. There isn't some evidence that I did anything. I just showed up here. And tomorrow somebody's going to just show up here, just like I did. Some little kid right now is showing up on planet Earth. He's looking out a fucking window and saying, holy shit, I'm here. And he might, like me, alright, draw some certain conclusions like, holy shit, I'm living in a madhouse. None of these people know what the fuck they're talking about. You ask them a straight question and they give you some gobbledygook about a god and the clouds and all kinds of fucking rubies and shit. You're like, what the fuck am I doing here? And he's going to be stuck in the same circumstance, in the same situation. He's going to have to endure the same goddamn irritating and obnoxious anxiety and worry and concern. He's going to see the animals suffering and it's going to break his little heart. All that shit's going to goddamn happen to him again. And because I say that's essentially myself, there's no real huge goddamn distinction. I've committed some kind of grotesque goddamn theology crime. That's what this little fucking weasel has done. You can't even use a metaphor. This fucking jerk. And he just posts images of these lies and bullshit and like he's some sort of serious he's not even a fucking interesting emo. He's just a little whiny turd. A little slandering whiny turd.
Which was the first point that kind of woke me up to what inmendham was really all about. Which is this form of emotional collectivism. Or not emotional, feeling-based collectivism.
Feeling-based collectivism? Where do you even get that from? Oh, yeah, right, pawnism, gameism, that's right. There's not a huge difference between pawn A, pawn B, pawn C, that's right. There's 7 billion people on Earth, and guess what? They can all be put in some kind of categories. And yeah, maybe you want to do the short, tall, fat, thin thing. I don't even think that's terribly relevant, but go ahead. But there's not huge distinctions. We're all little consciousnesses. We're all trying to eke out an existence, trying to just trying to chip the cement off our goddamn balls, and here you are bitching at me about it. You just suck. You just fucking suck.
Where he imagines that, the long, hard road of convincing people to abandon their individual interests.
Yeah, where did I say that? Again, I have obligated nobody to abandon anything. I have said go ahead and be a selfish ape, even on the subject of vegetarian. Unlike most vegetarians, I have said don't be a vegetarian, but at least advocate for it. Just say you suck. Just admit you fucking suck. That's all I've asked from people. Admit you fucking suck. Admit you're a selfish fuck. God damn. This is just such bullshit.
Is somehow worthwhile because it's possible to accomplish that goal when it isn't.
Oh, right. So there are all these people who are anti-natalists. They're doing something impossible. We all did something that's just fucking impossible. It's impossible for human beings to hear other people talk about things, and then they'll say, wait a minute, I never really thought about it. I mean, it was kind of, I always had a feeling that life was fucked up. And thank you for explaining to me why I had that feeling, because it's quite obvious the whole game is really, really broken. There's no good way to play this. There's no smart man strategy here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. God, you just suck.
Like when I came out of the closet, so to speak, on this whole nihilism thing way back when. What is it, a year ago? 2 years ago?
Yeah, and as a demonstration of my consistency, I drilled you a new asshole and told you to go fuck yourself, you crazy, goddamn, selfish, obsessed, vain idiot. Yeah, that's what I did.
I was very confident that I was right. There was a number of people who started jumping down my throat. And I think now that they've finally had some time to allow their star-struckedness of inmendham to fade, now they can finally wake up to reality. I'm looking at Skid Row Radio and a few other retards who, just kind of got a little bit of a tickle in their pickle from sucking Gary's asshole.
Yeah, right. Another guy who I haven't had any real contact with in like 3 years, but whatever. You're an amazing little turd. Yeah, the world will be better off without you.
How annoying. Moral nihilism is the path of least resistance in the human psychology and in the circumstance of our reality. I've always said that
the path of least resistance. I mean, how does that even mean anything? The negation of the idea that there's a meaningful difference between outcomes, that it just doesn't matter. You think that's somehow a rational way to look at it. And you're basically sentencing, you're basically just saying, go ahead, make more of a mess. I don't care. I don't care because I don't think a mess matters. It's just so fucking irrational coming from somebody who's so desperate to get out of the dilemma he's been put in. It's so fucking preposterously nonsensical. I mean, what have you been eating? Platypus shit? I mean, that's got to be the reason, right? That's what's going on. Everybody's eating platypus shit, and their brains are starting to dissolve.
A personal, graceful exit is the fastest way to antinatalism.
Oh, whatever. It has nothing to do with antinatalism, right? I mean, whether I kill myself or not, I'm not going to reproduce anyway, so that doesn't matter. And again, I'm not the one that's threatening to produce the next me, metaphorically. Put the next victim on the fucking Barbie. So if I'm not stopping the people who are going to put the next victim on the Barbie, then I guess I'm not going to accomplish anything. Stopping myself from doing something I'm not doing doesn't make much sense. You can't figure that out?
For that individual. And the individual's...
the image is the same. Might as well block this.
The whole universe is within their own brain. And inmendham wants to... he has this weird tick where he feels it necessary to attach his wagon to all of humanity. And, if he can't stop everything from being, then he is going to live forever. He's going to be reincarnated forever. That's what he believes, so...
Well, again, so everybody who's seen the Skype conversation, who's seen all the videos I've made on this subject, trying to undo one person's misinterpretation, and it's just this one person. You all know I've done this as hard as I can. I've explained as much as I can. It's a metaphorical. I don't think my personality, my individual human being, especially at my age now, is going to be reincarnated in another person, and I'm somehow going to like potato chips because I like potato chips here, or I'm going to, like a certain kind of woman because I like a certain kind of woman here. There's not going to be any connection between me and the other individual, except that we're going to fall into exactly the same categories, a whole bunch of the same categories. And I'm not, although I am incredibly vain, I'm not vain enough to think that every detail of me has to be duplicated for me-ness to exist. Everybody calls themselves a we, an us, a me. We all do that. We're all the same in that respect. It's a you, it's a them, it's a him, it's a her. These are all things that they will be. And you want to keep obsessing that there's some sort of huge difference, that I was some sort of only one thing and I was completely different than all these other things. There was no me before me and there'll never be another me after me. No, there'll be lots of human beings, sensitive, caring, frustrated, angry human beings. I mean, fuck. Well, why? I mean, this is embarrassing to have to even. Why should I have to do this over and over again? This is just such nonsense.
So, from that belief, it's not a stretch to see him doing this whole. Oh yes, there's a pillar of value standard that is written. He's essentially saying that it is written on a rock. Although he's going to say it doesn't have to be written on a rock. Well. I'm just using that as a metaphor. It's the same idea. You're just saying that it's written invisibly.
Efficiency will be as real as the color white or the color blue or any other category you want to put something in. Failure will be as real. Inefficiency will be as real. Destructive will be as real. Unproductive will be as real. Hurtful will be as real. These are all categories. They're all things something will be. Now, whether to say the elephant was white, it was white. It's just a truth of its condition, and it'll be a truth of our condition that we left a whole bunch of, we squandered suffering, we wasted it, we didn't grow up. The truth of slavery, although slavery is in the past, the truth of it is the truth of it. It was a colossal, grotesque, horrific wasting of suffering. You can't understand that? No, you can't. That's obvious. And it's just going to be a truth. How do you, I hate this whole YouTube redesign shit. You got to do all this work to figure out where the fuck the block button is. What the fuck is this? All activities. I don't want his fucking activities. I'm on his home page. I want to block the little fucker. Where do I go? How do I do that? Shit. About. I guess I have to go to the about page. God, this is so fucking irritating. Send a message. No, I don't want to send a message. I want to block the little fuck. There we go. Such. Alright, let's play the last minute here and get on with this.
I just think that he's just getting desperate because his whole channel and his popularity is diminishing. And all he's got left is harpies like that nasty bitch, Indifferent Sky sucking his hole. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not really big on having my hole sucked anyway, so it's it's not my thing really. Yeah, so whatever. Lament.
Fuck this guy, man. And I'm glad to see that his paper dragon is finally seen for what it is.
And I'm glad you're miserable, and I'm glad you'll be gone soon. So yeah, bon voyage to smelly, shitty, little snarky rubbish. So goodbye. Goodbye to you and such. Alright, so enough of that crap. Now we'll get to business here. What was business? We're going back to the objective of morality. So this is my video. Too hot all day. Alright, so I'll link to this one below. Until I had all these premises written here. They're not the most brilliant premises. They're not perfectly written. But they were a nice outline of what I was talking about. And anti-BullShitMan, of course, was completely off the subject. So, but let's just play this, and I'll point out to you the key phrases. To be value relevant, something must affect the experiential welfare of a feeling entity. Increase or decrease comfort. So it's pretty straightforward. Values created by feeling things. Their experiences generate a quantity of value. So if you're enduring smallpox every 5 minutes or so, or every 10 minutes, or every half hour, you create a ball of value negative crap. Suffering. That just has a weight, it has a mass of valueness to it. And that could be understood in the sense that if you could put it on the shelf in a store, 10 minutes of dying of smallpox, or the movie, whatever, pick one, Terminator. You're not going to buy the smallpox. I mean, I should put the worst movie ever made. You're going to pick the worst movie ever made versus smallpox. You could understand the value relative to all these other things that there are. I could put other experiences on the shelf, and you could understand the ones you'd want to pay not to have. Like, say, if they were going to be imposed on you, you certainly would pay to get rid of them. So if you had to pay to get 10 minutes of dying of smallpox off of you, you might pay quite a bit of money to avoid that 10 minutes of shit. I mean, the value is certain. It's not doubtful that it has value. It has value relative to everything else you would consider valuable. There's nothing it wouldn't be relevant to in terms of you being able to trade it with somebody else. And just think how much you would trade if it was somebody you cared about. How much you would give to get the smallpox ball off of somebody you cared about. Can be appreciated. Whether we can exactly quantify it is a subject to argument, and I think that's true. It's difficult to exactly quantify exactly how much negative dollars that is. So there you go. So isn't that a pretty careful statement? I'm saying, okay, there's the principle. Now, doing anything, with these numbers are really tricky. The finer, I'm certainly implying, the finer you make it, the harder it's going to be to do any kind of exact math. So I'm conceding the fact that we don't yet have the quanta. We don't have the perfect elementary statement. I think it exists. I think it's within my reach. But I haven't put it into words yet. I haven't made that perfect, eloquent statement defining the value so it's completely understandable relative to every single thing. 5 negative dollars, 10 negative dollars, whatever. But we know it's an amount of negative. And there's certain positives that'll have no power to compensate for that negative. So it's just figuring out the exchange rates between these value states. But ultimately, I'm going to argue that all the value states are negative. So in a sense, you have no hope of ever compensating for powerfully negative experiences people experience, because you can never generate anything of real value to compensate for it. Ultimately, I'm going to argue, so I did state in my thing that that's the later hypothesis. That's over here somewhere, okay? It's not part of this argument about ethics and morality. It's a conclusion that needs more evidence or proof to be made that I'm not going to be making in this video. So that, again, that's the proper way to look at that statement. And all there can be is a projection of value, a notion of value, based on some, I will accomplish something in the future, and that accomplishment will justify the suffering I endured, I created, I let loose into the universe. Okay, so let's just make a separation here. The zero-sum game argument is one argument. The argument that there's a net, that there is a value game being played is another argument. So this is about the fact that there is a value game. It isn't an argument about the zero-sum game. Oh man, I'm so tired. Anyway. Extremes are easily quantified, value-weighted, and equated. Okay, I didn't read that very well, but it's extremes are easily quantified. So there's the first use of the word extremes. It's in the writing, so it's right in here. Here it is. Extremes are easily quantified, value-weighted, and equated. Extremes. So there's the word. Extremes. It's right there. Can't deny it's right there. I'm talking about extremes, clearly. So obviously, yeah, the extremes are easy to do. So we know that smallpox for a half an hour wouldn't be worth, like say if you get an extra sprinkle, just a little tiny sprinkly thing on top of your cupcake. We know that there's no way, if you went to the store to buy a little extra sprinkle to put on your cupcake, and it cost one person having smallpox for an hour, there's no way you buy that sprinkle. It's just too expensive. So these extremes are really easy to establish the moral imperative, the law. Right. So in defense of what I'm claiming as a principle, I'm pointing out that we see the extremes on either side of the fence. I'm basically saying that's what a principle is. You're basically saying there is this thing that exists, this divider, this statement of truth. And I'm saying here it is. We can see it because we can see the distinctions between the extremes. We can be solid on the extremes. So if we have the extremes on the two sides, we know there's a principle here. Logical imperative. You have a logical imperative not to squander or waste the suffering for something as useless and frivolous and trivial as a sprinkle on the cupcake. The existence of sentience creates value. I mean, it seems like such an obvious statement, but I mean, it's one that's going to have to be established through even more argument than here, but it just is the truth. Okay, the existence of sentience creates value. As long as there's something alive, feeling, it doesn't have to be alive, but anything feeling, creating feeling sensations, it's creating value. It now has a welfare. It can feel better or it can feel worse. And that's the game of value. You have a logical imperative to make things feel better and a logical imperative not to make things feel worse. In net. Again, it's the net equation. When the whole thing is played out, how much did dropping that screwdriver, how much suffering in the world was created because it dropped, and how much would not have been created if it hadn't dropped. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty simple definition of the reality, okay? This is the reality we exist in. Everything will have an impact on the world. There's a world with me in it and a world without me in it. And in one of those worlds, okay, people are, there's a net equation to whether that there's people in, whether more suffering was endured. And let's just use one of the quanta. Like I said, the positive element, I'm still debating its existence. You may concede its existence. You may believe its existence. That's not what I'm arguing here. I'm just arguing the fact that we know the negative exists. We know it has a value. And I'm saying there's a truth about whether the world has more suffering in it with me or without me. There's just a truth. And that defines the substance and meaning of my existence as being good or bad. It's just that obvious. That's the game we're playing. That's the goal that's being scored. That's the function. That's the value of the game. This is what the machine life creates. It creates these states of sentient welfare. That's it. There's nothing else that means anything. Everything else only has value related to how it affects these sentient things and how it balances that equation, how it changes the net effect. And that's the thing anti-BullShitMan is saying is insanely stupid, imbecilic, nonsensical rubbish. And I'm saying I can't imagine anything else, and he's not helping me imagine it to be any other way. So, and that'll be the question, whether I had a moral obligation to prevent it from falling. The existence of sentience, I already did that, creates value. Conscious experiences produce a value state. So consciousness is the creator of value. And yeah, it just seems obvious. Okay. So anyway, and then my hypothesis or theory would be that all conscious states are relative degrees of a negative state. But there is no true positive, that all you can do is elevate something state from a less positive state to a more negative state to a less negative state. And that's all we do in our existence, is migrate ourselves from less negative to more negative, or more negative to less negative. And that's all we can accomplish. And so it's totally a zero-sum game, and it just totally can't be played to a profit. It can only be played to a loss. Because you have to create the negative state before you can have any positive state. You have to make the mess before you can clean up the mess. And that fundamentally makes it broken, because you have to break it to fix it. We have to break it by existing, by making us vulnerable, by creating harm. And now we can extract ourselves from harm and call that victory. But it's not really a victory. We're just getting ourselves out of the hole that we were thrown in terms of existing. So anyway, that's another argument, separate from the existence of value and morality. So I will keep that separate, but I'm just saying that's ultimately that does play a key role in understanding this quanta of value, and the fact that it is very mathematical, and it does have a substance that can be understood, and that we can pretty much, if we really work at it, quantify it. We can quantify our experiential state and understand it to be, negative $1 versus negative $5 versus negative $10 versus negative $1 million. And we can do a lot of that. We can certainly fit things into ranges, and we can understand that to take myself from a negative $5 to a negative $1, I can't do that. I can't justify taking somebody else from negative $50 to negative $500. There you go. Another extreme example. Tiny amount of gain for me, huge loss for somebody else in their welfare. I said ranges, okay? Nothing explicit. Let's not bother with the fence. Let's just bother with the idea that we know there's these obvious things. Like I said, once you establish extremes on both sides, you've defined the principle. And you don't have to prove the fence bird shit. That would be a bad value exchange, therefore illogical, therefore immoral. Yeah, probably enough of a video. So anyway, I'll try to narrow it down, even get it quicker and more concise. But anyway, that's the first shot at it anyway. So again, this is not a bold, obnoxious video. I'm not making hard, awful declarations. I'm just making this basic observation that we know for certain that certain hardships aren't going to be worth any, certain benefits, and we can establish this relationship between value quantities. And then, so I'm just establishing that this is the video. Tighten the language up a little bit. So we'll see where we go from here. Okay, so let's do anti-BullShitMan's comments and be done with this crap. Is this the right video? Yeah. Alright, where are they? Okay, I think these are never said I did, trying to downplay suffering. No, that's one of his added comments. His original ones are here. Okay, here they are. The word value is defined as a concept of worth, nothing more. I already said, I mean, this is just sort of obnoxious. So anyway, now he wants to play a semantics game. You've done a stellar job in the past of railing against postmodernists who try to mess with language. So it's somehow I've messed with language. You saw the video. I was explaining the relationship between values. I even did the example of the store and all that crap. I mean, fuck. Anyway, so it kills me to see you turn into this twister, bender, and outright redefiner of well-defined words. So he's making this pretty harsh accusation that I'm just playing a semantics game. I'm just trying to manipulate language to make some sort of point. I don't think I did anything like that or anything close to that. And for what? To establish a half-baked premise. So anyway, those premises are all listed. My argument is listed. He didn't point out which one of them is half-baked, which you don't even need in order to argue for AN. Well, again, I think you do need it. I think it's vital to me telling somebody else what the truth is for me to establish that the truth exists. I think it's totally obnoxious of me to sit there and tell anybody else what the right thing to do is if I'm not damn sure what the right thing is. Point to one dictionary that defines value as consisting of raw feelings plus or minus. So again, you don't see how this is really obnoxious. Like all of a sudden, what a straw man. I have to find a dictionary? I just made the video explaining why I think the value quanta is created by consciousness. I pointed out how every 5 minutes that the individual suffers, that it's releasing a value entity into the ether, and that value entity will be part of the statement made about success or failure, efficiency or inefficiency, good or bad. It will be good or bad depending on how much of that stuff leaks into the ether. If every one of us if all 7 billion people on Earth tomorrow got smallpox and started dying of it, the stench of the suffering in the ether would be obvious. The horror of the waste would be obvious. The need to correct for the huge amount of negative being spewed into the ether would be obvious. To establish it's simply incoherent to apply the word this way. I'm applying the word to the very core that all value is based on. As I said in the other video, not this video, but I might have said it in this video, who knows. I think I made the point that everything else that has value because it affects a sentient being. I mean, let's go back to the premises. I'm sure it's right the fuck in there. How can you refute that with this simple one sentence? You show up with your one sentence and think that's enough of an argument? I mean, it's disgusting. Well, it's probably in here. Aesthetics, extremes, easy, no. Sentience creates value. Well, I think that's all it needs. The value is created by how it affects a sentience. The reason why products have value is because sentient beings have to endure unpleasantness and go to work. That's why stuff has value. Everything that has value because it affects a sentient, and that's it. There's no other way to create value but to affect a sentient being. And he's telling me I don't have a right to use the word value in this way. And I think that's just obnoxious. Anyway. So the tunnel vision. So we know the word tunnel vision is not used in any kind of... You couldn't find... Where are you going to find a non-derogatory use of the word tunnel vision? Do you know of any? If I go on Google, anti-BullShitMan, how many uses of tunnel vision am I going to find that aren't derogatory? Net principle formula you tout leads to the following. Alright, so the net principle I pointed out by using the word extreme. Again, the word extreme is right in the written premise. It's right there. Extremes are easily quantified, value-weighted, and equated. I mean, shit, it's one single sentence and it starts with the word extremes. So I'm conceding, obviously, by that statement, that the non-extremes might not be so fucking easy. I mean, shit. And he says, well, here, I'm going to ignore what you said, and I'm going to try to pretend that I've got a counter-argument that basically is built on a premise I've already conceded, that the non-extremes are going to be very complicated. So unless you want to get into a whole fucking big pile of argument about those, you're not going to be able to give me a non-extreme that isn't going to require explicit detail. So let's just play out what he said here. Okay. If presented with the opportunity to painlessly, instantly kill an adult who is as educated as you, is content with his life and wishes to live the remainder of it, who lives on a desert island, who lives purely vegan diet, whose continued existence will not tilt any outside interaction, the only rational move is still to kill him as per zero-sum mandate. So again, in the video, I conceded the zero-sum argument isn't even going to be in this video. Okay, I'm not arguing that in this video. I'm arguing for objective morality. Yet he's going to argue the zero-sum net stuff in this comment, which is just obnoxious because that's not what I was arguing in the video. I was just pointing out that that's the net conclusion I've drawn, and that net conclusion validates some of these points. The logic is interconnected. But anyway, and so here's this scenario, right? So if you believe life is fundamentally fail, it's pretty hard to live it without failing. You know, the obligation is yeah, if I thought it was worthwhile, then yeah, I'd build life parks. But obviously I don't think it's worthwhile. I don't think it can be productively lived. All right? And so in this scenario, you'd have to explain to me, how's this individual going to die? How are they going to live? I mean, are they living on some paradise island? You say desert island. You don't say paradise island. How do they function? What's the preparation? Does he have a gun so he can blow his brains out in case everything goes wrong? He gets cancer on a desert island by himself. I'm not supposed to think that might be something worth stopping. That it might be possible that sometime in the future he might wish he never stayed on the island. But whatever. Again, but still, look, the point is this has nothing to do with the argument being made. And I conceded in the video that there's no point in going on the stuff on the fence. We have the extremes as the proof. We don't need to sit there and do the bird shit on the fence because we have the extremes to establish the proof. There's just no doubt about the value weight of these things. And if I gave you the scenario, you would no doubt raise your hand one way or the other saying, don't do that, or yes, do that. And those questions are obvious. In the extreme, they've got two buttons in front of you. 6 million Jews eating cupcakes, 6 million Jews in a concentration camp. You know which button to press. We can see the logic in it. It's right there in front of us. There's no doubt about the truth. And that's what the extremes establish. There's no doubt about the value truth of it. There's no rational way to justify hitting the non-cupcake button. None. No rational theory can be contrived to justify it. Leaving it as simple as it is. You know, there's no hidden prize behind curtain number 3. It just is. Everything else stays the same. The only thing that changes is 6 million Jews suffer and 6 million Jews don't suffer. Damn. Anyway, so that's what started this shit. And then it gets into all this nihilist crap. So that's the part that's going to we'll have to go through, because that's the real subject, in my opinion, is this nihilist crap. So that's the one we got to deal with. So I'll be back to do that. So I'm just going to have to go through his comments, and I'll just have to pull out all the little sentences where he says something really stupid. Yeah. You are defending uses of the word value, which classifies value itself as a commodity. Well, isn't that interesting? Value itself as a commodity. Yeah, the commodity of this economy, like the commodity of food would be maybe wheat or corn or something else. The commodity of this economy of morality is sentient welfare, is the comfort state of sentient beings. The comfort state of sentient beings. That's the corn. That's the wheat. That's the commodity that runs the economy, of the morality, of the ethical obligations. Yeah. And he's claiming that's just absolutely preposterous. It's not even worthy of debate or question or conversation.